Welcome to Womb Talk. I'm your host, Elizabeth Vanderwelt, the owner and founder of Fruitful Womb Doula Services. In Womb Talk, we like to go over different topics that are acceptable for all audiences. I'm not a medical professional. Everything on this podcast is just to educate you so that you can make a better choice for your body. If you have a passion for all things women's health, then start listening. It's a wide range of subjects that are at your fingertips. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on a lot of platforms. Let's start talking, shall we? Today we're going to talk a little bit about eating for fertility. I want to start off by saying that I'm not a nutritionist, which kind of covers in my intro about not being a medical professional, but just in case, I'm going to sum that up here for you right now. I am a nutritional doula, but I can never diagnose you or tell you how to eat. This is just me based off what I've learned, what I've read, and how I can help you better on maybe eating for fertility. I educate you so that you can make informed choices when it comes to your eating habits. I've just been itching to talk to you about this, and I thought, why not start at one of the more earlier sides of our human body by starting fertility. So before I start this podcast and talk about eating, I want to ask you a question and try to get the feeling of what you're thinking. When you hear the word fertility, what does that make you think about? Does it automatically think, oh, I'm trying for a baby, or I'm trying not to have a baby? I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, so make sure you try to interact with this podcast and tell me either if you're watching this on YouTube, on the comments below, or just think it to yourself. What does fertility mean to me? When I'm talking in this podcast of fertility, I am discussing on how food should be incorporated into your life, obviously, and how that incorporates with your ability to have a child. So that's what I'm discussing in this type of podcast. But to some, fertility means for women as a whole, we have fertility since we start puberty all the way until menopause. So for some, fertility can mean a whole lot of things, but I just wanted to clarify that now. So when I was doing a lot of research and reading into eating and how to better support women, there's some different research and facts that have come out. And again, a lot of things that I find is, even though we can test things and see, everybody's body is different and it may not always work for everyone. So even though these ideas may have worked for others in the past or do work for other people today, it may not work for you, because just like me, not everything works for me. So that can always apply to you as well. So according to Chinese medicine, the best time to eat breakfast is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Huh, interesting, eh? Apparently it's the peak time for the stomach. And with lunch, they suggest that you eat more protein versus carbs because it's better for your energy levels. And I mean, I'm a sucker for eating a bagel with cream cheese at lunchtime. Now, in my current area where I'm living in Saskatchewan, everybody eats supper for dinner here. And I've been told that I need to understand my lingo a little bit better. But it's very common here for people to eat a warm meal during noon hour. And then either a cooler meal or maybe another warm meal would be in the evening time. I was always brought up with eating a cool meal at lunch, roughly, tuna salad or my bagel that I talked about, or a slice of bread. Like, that's kind of always been my lunch style. So eating carbs, and that's the best for dinner time or for like the evening time instead, is so surprising to me, because during that time I'm having my meat, I'm having my potatoes, I'm having my veggies, that kind of stuff. So if you're anything like me, I'm a very scheduled eater. If I don't eat something specifically at 7:30 a.m. or on the dot at noon or past 5 o'clock or like on the 5 o'clock mark, I can get quite hangry. And I'm not lying when I say this. I am quick to if I don't feed myself at a certain time, I do get a little bit more tense, and you maybe wouldn't want to be in a room with me because I may not be the nicest to you. And I've been told that that is the most hilarious thing ever about myself because I'm a birth doula. And if I go to a birth, I'm not going to be eating at my scheduled times because I can't even predict when I will be eating next. So it's not always as easy as just saying the best time to eat is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. You may be up very late for work, and all of a sudden you are eating at 10 or 11 because that's what works best for you. So when I tell you that according to Chinese medicine that the best time to eat breakfast is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., this may not apply for you or work for you because you have a different life than whoever tested this. But in terms of when is the best time to be eating, that's what they recommend. Another really big and important thing about eating for your fertility is protein. According to studies that were done on animals, low protein can be an indicator of poor egg quality. And the more protein you eat and ingest, it helps with your FSH and LH hormone production. So if you don't know what FSH means, that means follicle stimulating hormone. And if you don't know what LH means, that's your luteinizing hormone. And I'm not pronouncing that correctly. So I highly recommend looking on Google and getting them to click on that because I never pronounce certain things correctly. I have a very hard time with that. Anyway, side sweep off. Phew. Protein can be found in quite a lot of things. And with today, we have the invention of protein powder. So you can mix protein into most meals. Although, personally, I am fond of natural protein that is found in beans and meat. But the more protein you can have is beneficial for your diet. So, if you're currently not eating a lot of protein and you're trying to conceive, try to increase each day a little bit more protein to meet your daily needs. Let's talk about iron. This is a very touchy subject for me. Back when I was, this is a long time ago already. I want to say between the ages of 14 and 15, I was diagnosed with anemia. So and if you don't know what anemia means, that means I have very low levels of iron in my body. As women, we need an adequate amount of iron because this can be a guard against miscarriage, and it can also affect our bleeding. You either can bleed heavier or bleed less because of it. So that means, in lamer terms, that low levels of iron can actually affect your fertility. Since being diagnosed with anemia, I have been taking steadily Easy Iron from a local natural nutrition store. I have been through multiple different types of iron consumption methods. Through liquid forms of iron, I have taken swallowable, tablets, for chewing, and none of them have worked as well as this Easy Iron brand that I've had. Because with iron, it can actually affect your stomach a lot. It can also affect a lot of your bowel movements. It can be a very difficult thing to incorporate if you're lacking it. And for some weird reason, I have never been able to gather the nutrients from food iron, like vegetables and meat, and have never been able to absorb that correctly enough, as much as this iron has taken. When I first got diagnosed with anemia, I was told by my doctor that she was surprised I was still standing because there was literally none in my body. She's like, you have a count of 0. And if there was anything less than 0, you would be that anything less. So I always remember that because I thought it was a hilarious thing at the moment until I learned a little bit more about that. So in terms of iron, if you currently are consuming a lot of things that already are higher in iron and you don't think it'll be any problem, then this isn't something that really affects you as much. But if maybe you're a vegetarian or vegan and you've been noticing more symptoms towards iron deficiency, then you may want to consider testing out ways and figuring out if you also are lacking iron. Iron deficiency is very popular amongst women, so you're not special if you have it. And I don't mean that as an insult. I literally just mean that, it's quite a common thing. So don't be upset if that's something that's happening to you, because if you can fix it and start working on it, then that means you can help yourself towards a better and healthier you to possibly house your future child. Another very important nutritional item that is needed for fertility is magnesium. And again, it's a very common deficiency. If you're low on it, there's a chance that you might be suffering from infertility, which, is a whole subject of its own. But if you're just wanting a few quick and easy tips on how to get your eating healthier and to get some more ideas on how to help yourself ahead of the time, this might help. If your magnesium is also low, there is an increased risk of miscarriage. So, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my, she keeps talking about these different items and what do I eat for that? And again, my mother always had a saying, and my grandmother had given it to her, is that you just want to eat a little bit of everything in moderation. And that should help in most cases, but sometimes you need more of than in moderation. So some popular foods that include magnesium, that have magnesium in them, is pumpkin and chia seeds. And if you know anything about seed cycling, pumpkin and chia seeds, or the pumpkin seeds, are on the list of seeds to be seed cycling, which I can discuss in another podcast if there's interest. Another one known for spinach. There you go, you got the secret. I was going to say that another thing to support magnesium and get more in your body is through spinach, which, funny enough, is also known for helping with iron. Almonds and cashews are another. Black beans, brown rice, and salmon are even more options. So a fun dietary plan would be to incorporate a few of these items, tick off your protein with your salmon and black beans, as well as magnesium and iron through your spinach on the side. And there you go. You've got a very, I don't know if it would taste you good, kind of option for a meal. Another common misconception, and there's so many different articles that banter about the back and forth about this, so this is going to be, I think, highly related on opinion for this subject. But fats aren't bad for you. It's quite the opposite, actually, and it's a vital role in our fertility. You can make hormones, transport cholesterol, and help reduce inflammation. If you're lacking fats, you may see an increase in dry skin, PMS, cracked lips, and tender breasts. So, as I love to say, and our house is obsessed with it, especially with the hope that soon our milk cow will be producing good enough, eat some butter and thank me later. Because, in all honesty, butter is quite delicious, and I'm a huge fan of putting it in your mashed potato, or just in plain potatoes, honestly. I always recommend that you do your own research. Be your own provider and a little bit of a detective to care for your body. This one especially, I wanted to highlight that because a lot of people I've seen a lot of different research on two different sides of the coin, that fats are bad for you. So, this is just for you to maybe research if you're currently on a diet that's not including fats and it's not for a health reason. You're just like, oh, this is supposed to be the best for me. Maybe you should look into other reasons then on why, that might be the best or it might not be the best. Even though you do have healthcare providers and you hire them for that, they don't know you the way you know you. And I know that's a lot of yous, so it can get confusing. But the main sentence consumption there was, you are the only person who knows you the best. And I have always said this, is that they even know you better. You know yourself better than even a doctor. So just think on that a little bit while you enjoy some butter for me. Another one is carb it to me, babe. You may be laughing along with me if you find puns funny, but carbs should make up about 55% of the food you eat. They're vitally important in maintaining a balance of hormones and blood sugar levels. There's also a huge difference between the fast-releasing carbs and slow-releasing carbs, which could be a whole episode on itself. But in another sense, if you love sourdough bread, enjoy. And lastly, but not least, for some tips on fertility eating, every woman should know this thing about folate. Folate should be a staple in your supplement game. If you're trying to conceive a baby, you always hear that pregnant women should be taking prenatal vitamins and folic acid. We need a minimum of 400 mcg, of folic acid daily. So at least 3 months prior to trying to conceive, you should be already ingesting 400 mcg of folic acid daily. Now, there is a difference between folic acid and folate. Let me try to explain that. The biggest difference is that folate occurs naturally in your foods, and it refers to all types of vitamins, including B9 and folic acid. Whereas when you take a folic acid in a capsule form, that is synthetic, man-made form of B9 found in supplements, and it is also added to fortified foods. So, if you're trying to have a baby, I would start taking your vitamins, and you can also start increasing your diet with dark leafy greens and organ meats. And if you're anything like me, those two sound like a terrible combination, and you probably won't catch me dead eating them. But if you're also really trying, and you have tried quite a few methods, this might be a way to better support you by eating better foods for fertility. And of course, this isn't everything. Things like vitamin D, B12 vitamins, and other minerals are very important because you are what you eat in a sense. And eating rich foods that are filled with nutrients can be hard to find in this day and age. One of the best things I can suggest is trying to find a local farmer to you that might be growing produce right in your own backyard in a sense. And having it pretty much from farm to table might also help increase your nutrient level. When people are trying to conceive, I always tell them to remember to check the diet for both you and your partner. So hypothetically, to paint a little story for you, you came to me today and you would ask me what would be a couple of things that I could do to better support my fertility, to try to conceive a baby that I've been dreaming about for many years. And I would tell you that your number one start would be to analyze your diet. Even though, like I said, I'm not a nutritionist, I would get you to start a food journal and just track what you eat a little bit in a non-judgmental way. You got to go into it with a happy mindset that this isn't to point out my flaws, but to see how I can better improve my eating. And you may even be getting gold stars across the board, and this may not even be related to any lackluster of food or nutrient changes. But because we are so interconnected with food and water, that is where I would first probably start you off in asking, what is your diet like between you and your partner? So if you were hoping for an answer like that, then hopefully this podcast did help you somewhat. Because if this did not make you hungry, because even though I just had breakfast a little while ago, I now have actually just decided I am hungry again. So I did not do my job correctly if you come away from this podcast not thinking about food. Or if you are currently pregnant and you heard organ meats, you may have decided that you do not feel like eating at all for the next little while. So it could go either way. Hopefully you take away from this lots of information that will be beneficial for you in deciding on what you're going to eat next and how it's going to affect your fertility, whether you're trying to conceive or not. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you come back to listen next time. Bye bye.